Alright, so the Knights are back in the meta. A lot of you guys have been struggling. Not really, honestly. I think most of you guys are winning against Knights. But for the majority of people that are watching this video, I'm sure you've asked the question of how do we deal with this new Knight problem? What is the new Knight problem? And what do I need to adjust? Okay. The immediate thing that you need to recognize is that just because so Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights were essentially, as far as the big knights are concerned, a like D tier, F tier army. Okay, I know that Art of War, right? Brian went and won a super major, did really well. But just because one or two people go and win a really big event and they're already like known players, doesn't mean the army all of a sudden shoots from one of the worst armies in the game. Of course, like basically the whole edition, and then they go becoming like an A tier or B tier army. That's not what Knights do. Now that they've gotten their points back, okay, if you remember at the beginning of the edition, towering was the main problem with Knights. So they could see everything and just sit back and table you in 2 seconds. Okay, they got the towering change where they can't do that anymore, and they also got like 60 plus points nerfs across the board. I was the opinion of that they need to reduce the points back because towering doesn't exist anymore. So they can change the points back and everything's gonna be normal. They didn't do that. They waited till the codex dropped for Chaos Knights, and the Imperial Knights codex is coming out soon. So I don't think this is a problem. I think Knights are finally appropriate costed. They might, be 15, 20 points too expensive, just tiny little bit of increments here and there, or the armigers might want to go up a little bit on the Imperial side, basically. Or when their codex comes out, maybe they'll get a rule change on their Six of Funeral Pain or something else. But overall, I think the Knights are in a healthy place. I think they're strong, and I want to talk about that a little bit. Just because the Knight armies currently have a 60% win rate or a 65% win rate does not mean that the army's broken or needs to be nerfed immediately or anything like that. It's really, really easy in Warhammer to go 60% win rate. You just need to go 3 and 2. If you go 3 and 2 at a GT, you automatically are like, above average, whatever. You're going to have a good win rate. And Knights is one of the armies that is meant to win all of their early games or all of their games into like bad players. And if you go to a tournament, somebody's going 1 and 2, or sorry, not 1 and 2, but 1 and 4, someone's going 0 and 5 that tournament. And they're going to lose to the Chaos Knight and the Imperial Knights. Why? Because it's a lot simpler of an army to play. They might be playing some mishmash of stuff, but if you just bring any 6 big knights or 5 big knights and something else, you're going to pretty much have good units. You're not bringing anything super, super terrible, and you're going to lose some games, but you're going to win more of your games than you're going to lose because your opponent bringing intercessors and random junk that doesn't matter, as if they're going to a narrative event or something like that. So that's why the win rates are basically irrelevant to me, and you shouldn't be scared of this army coming into the meta at all. I think that the Knight players are very happy. I'm very happy, and I don't even play Knights. I play Space Marines and 20 other armies. So don't be afraid and just look forward to it and deal with the problems that are gonna be presented. So the main thing that you're gonna be worried about is there's two different variants. Okay, there's a melee type of army and there's a shooting type of army when it comes to Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights. I'm of the opinion, and I think most people are going to be gravitating towards playing a heavy shooting style as the Knight meta improves and people adjust their lists and realize the problems they're having when they lose half their games, is because when you play a melee army, it's as if you're bringing a lot of melee Blood Angels, Possessed, CSM Orcs. If you have nothing to hide behind, you're just going to be shot off the board and killed immediately. And big knights cannot hide behind walls without losing a bunch of distance because they just move up and they move 10 inches, touch a ruin, and they get shot, or they have to go through like some wide angle and they get picked up. Okay, so the melee knight basically has to run at you and just hope that it survives and connects and then does damage, or it comes off a rapid ingress, which you can easily screen. So for that reason, I just don't think the melee knights are that good. Okay, there is some caveats to this where the Chaos Knight variants right now have fight first and advance and charge with extra movement. So there's actual play in that list. But overall, the shooting variants are going to be much stronger in my opinion because of this dynamic of the melee knight just can't hide and get close to you before getting shot off the board. The shooting knights, on the other hand, have tons of firepower. They don't have to go towards their opponent and be killed. They also can bring 72-inch guns, which means they're going to be perfectly outside of melt their range and all of the other like dangerous weapons. And so they're a lot more survivable. When you get a lot more survivable with knight that lasts 2-3 turns, you're gonna have an easier time. Lastly, they don't need to run from one side to the other. They can kind of just scoot across the table and then still get an angle across and shoot something that might have taken out a knight on the other side of the board. Okay, so that's the shooting and the melee variant. You're gonna see more of the melee variant, I think, right now, just because it's still early on, and a lot of people are taking Atropos, Lancers, and just Gallants and Rampagers. And Canis Rex by default is basically a combat knight that has one gun, which is a solid gun, but he's mostly gonna be in combat for probably at least 2 turns of the game. And so because of that, the Imperial Knight variants are all based around Canis Rex, besides a few rare cases like mine, which takes more Crusader heavy. Okay, so that's one thing to take note of. Let's talk about this knight tier list that isn't a tier list. So this is basically the knights that you're going to be playing into often. And I've kind of like rated these in terms of what you're going to see more often on the table and why. So at the very top, we have on the Chaos Knight side, we have the Atropos, the Rampager, and the Despoiler. Very easy reasons why these are being taken. The big knight attachment, I'm forgetting the name of it, but basically the one that gives you fight first. You put that on a Rampager, and it's basically untouchable from any melee army in the game. Very, very good enhancement, so you take the Rampager. The Atropos is one of the healthiest knights and has an invul in close combat. There's an enhancement that lets you advance and shoot and still charge, so the Atropos becomes significantly better in that case. Okay, so that's why those two are up there, but the Atropos, you're not going to see it, in every single build. Also, people probably have one, so they want to put it on the table, so you're going to see it, especially if they're Imperial Knight and a Chaos Knight player, which do exist. They might just import their Imperial Knight over to the Chaos side. The Despoiler is the third one. This is a knight that has a lot of shooting, so if you just go back to me talking about how shooting is I think the superior playstyle and better overall. The Despoiler just does everything, and you can take any loadout you want. The interesting thing about the Chaos side of the Knights is that you can bring a lot of demon allies and mix and match things. People are already taking Death Guard with Chaos Knights, like a Despoiler, to give you -1 to save, so the AP doesn't matter as much. Or I've been playing, Shadow Legion with the Chaos Knight even before the Chaos Knight Codex came out for a hot minute, because comboing with the Despoiler's guns is just really, really strong firepower. So expect to see 2 to 3 Despoilers on the field very commonly as the meta progresses. After that, we kind of go to the Lancer. The Lancer is just a melee knight. People have it. They want to put it on the table. You'll probably see it. It's also one of the ones that is tankier, has a 4-up invul in close combat, so it's more likely to survive. That's basically the only reason you'll see it on the table. It also got a plastic kit recently, or not too long ago, so it's kind of relevant. The Abominant is something that's been collecting dust for about 2 years. It's finally its time to shine, being one of the cheapest knights, which means it's going to fit into a lot more lists. And the 6-knight list or the 5-knight list runs 3 of these, 2 to 3 of these. The damage variant that this offers you is really, really nice because it does a lot of mortal wounds. And its 12-shot gun has flat 3 damage, 0 AP, but flat 3 damage dev wounds. It kills 2 or 3 custodians every single time it shoots. If you bring 3 of these, that's just 36 shots, damage 3, devastating wounds, roll a bunch of 6s, and you just delete demons, knights, whatever you want. So I really like this. Its counterpart is the Paladin on the other side, which we'll get to later on. So you're going to see this a lot. After this, we basically get to the, the knight, I don't know, it's a Castellan / Valiant version. on the Chaos side. This is only taken because it has a 12-inch no-go zone, so you can't deep strike or bring in reserves. Um, Interesting thing is that its gun got changed from one shot on the harpoon gun to D3 shots. It lost devastating wounds, but it's still, if you can roll that 3 every single time or use a CP every single time, and just roll good, I guess, you're gonna threaten a lot of damage. And then sometimes your opponent might not even walk up there because some armies can tank 12 damage to the face and be like, sure, I'll take 12 damage to my knight. I still got a bunch of wounds left, no big deal. But you failing 2 of those, taking 24, is something you probably don't want to do. Going down to the Desecrator, this one basically is one of the worst knights in the game, um, because it only has a 3-shot weapon on its like anti-vehicle monster gun, right? And its melee weapon is only 4 attacks. This, unfortunately, I think is not going to see a lot of play. It's cool. I think people will bring this in if they don't have one of the other knights and they have this built and painted. They'll definitely slot it in, or point reasons. I do think it could see play in the cultist detachment just because you can get sustained hits and lethal hits. Mostly sustained, so you can just kind of get the extra 1 hit in every single time and give your opponent like 3 saves or get an extra devastating wound in sometimes. So that's why it's there. All the dogs are in D tier for dog tier. Same thing with the Imperial side. Not going to be talking about those. Those are pretty much there because you'll see them or not see them depending on the opponent you're playing. And I am definitely overseeing War Dog spam or Armiger spam on the table. Going to the Imperial side, Canis Rex is an S tier. You're going to see him pretty much on the table at all times for probably the rest of the edition and maybe next edition as well. The only thing I don't like about Canis Rex and the Atropos and anything that has a 24-inch gun is its short range. At 24 inches, you're essentially just a melee knight, and I don't like that. It's something that I can get a 36-inch gun and shoot Canis, and then he walks up 10 inches and shoots his 24, but I'm 2 inches outside of his range, so he can't even target me. And so because of that reason, I don't like Canis Rex in my list personally. I do see a position, like a place for him, where he can join and do well. He is a strong model. He's stronger as an ally, I think, overall. But in this army particularly, I'd rather have a Crusader just doing a lot of damage or go down a different archetype. Canis Rex, I know people want him to get nerfed, whatever. I personally don't think he needs to be touched. 380 points is still very expensive. So that's what I think about Canis Rex. I think that anytime you bring an Atropos for Canis Rex, the range is a huge impact, and if you know this, the knight player is gonna have a tough time trying to get angles, especially once you start move blocking and not letting them come near you. If you tweak your list a little bit, like CSM and Space Marine players, just bring some last cannons. If you bring Havocs or Devastators and just put them on the side of the board, you're gonna be shooting last cannons at the knight turn by turn and turn, and there's nothing that the knight player can do because they don't have a gun that reaches that far. Right, until you bring in the Crusader and things like this, which is why I like those knights a lot better. Having a 72-inch gun is superior. So the Crusader and the Warden. The Warden buffs up your armigers, brings a very nice diverse style of play. Board control, that's why it's there. It's a really, really solid model and unit. And at the beginning of 10th edition, it was being taken like 1 or 2 ofs to have a more board control style of list. The armigers are only 130, 140 points. I would pay 130 points for a Redemptor Dreadnought. A Dreadnought that's -1 damage, I would 100% pay 130 points for it, which is what the Warden does. So you're going to see him for sure. I think he's actually one of the stronger builds out there. And the Crusader you're going to see just because you worse somebody playing a melee knights list, you bring the Crusader, you stick it on the line, and you just look at your opponent. Your opponent moves up, you don't move your knights, you have sustained hits, and you just shoot a shit ton of guns. Okay, so that's why it's really, really strong. A tier Atropos, you're going to see this a lot because Art of War wants to run 3 of them. A lot of people own it, same thing as a Chaos Knight variant, right? They just have it since the beginning of the edition, they're going to play with it. It is a good, strong model. But same thing as Canis Rex. It has a range issue that I don't like. It is a lot tougher though, so I will give it that. The Lancer is just a melee knight. People will own it and they'll put it on the table, test it out. The Paladin is where things get interesting. I do think there's a build out there running 2 to 3 Paladins, same thing as the Abominants, just the cheapest knight. And when you look at the Paladin's ability, the easiest way to understand this is don't look at his reroll 1 saving throw per phase um, as a reroll. Think of it as I blank a damage. Okay, you're gonna give him rotate ion shield. He's got a 4-up invul. You're gonna fail a save on like a Melta or Last Cannon, and you're gonna activate his ability and automatically make that saving throw. Now, obviously, it's gonna fail 25% of the time, but if you think of it as it's gonna automatically succeed one failed save, your opponent should also be thinking of it like that, because we don't know what the dice is gonna roll. It could roll a 1 into a 1, right? But most of the time, if you use it like that, you start to understand why this ability is actually really, really strong. It also lets you reroll a hit roll or wound roll, which is really good. The per phase thing is the key part. It's not like locked to just once per battle round or once per turn. I'm pretty sure it's per phase. But you know, go read up on it and try to brainstorm some lists with it. It also comes with the 72-inch battle cannon, which is really, really strong because of the range. Then we go to the Gallant and the Errant. You'll see these randomly in lists. I don't think the Errant is worth taking, honestly. Advancing an Armiger, making up for the fact that it lost its 24-inch Melta range and getting into the Melta range with an advance is cute. You might see it here or there. Maybe there's builds once the Imperial Knights Codex comes out. But right now we don't have a Codex, so a lot of these things are going to change once we get a lot, like 6 new detachments that have been leaked, whatever. So they're okay. You're not going to see them all the time, but they're fun. C tier, we basically have the bad Dominus class knights. These things basically are the same. Nothing's changed. One thing I will note though, the reason why they're less viable now, even in the Chaos Knight Grotmage detachment with the Cultists, is because T13 was a big breakpoint. Losing that was not the end of the world to T12. What was the end of the world was the 2-up save going to a 3-up save. All of these guys have a 3-up save now, which means you're going to take like 5 more damage every single shooting phase from your opponent, which is just horrible. All the random bolter fire cultist shots are going to actually go through, and you're going to sit there being like, I could have had 5 life left, but now I have 0, and I'm just dead. So that's what I think about that. Then the Preceptor Knight basically just gives you OC and leadership, not a big deal. No one's going to be playing that, I don't think, at least for now. The Armigers are just there. One thing I'm going to say, guys, right here is the Shooting Knights are really good. Another reason why the Melee Knights are not that strong is because outside of the Gallant and Canis Rex and the Rampager, a lot of these knights have like 4 attacks on their swords or fists, and they just can't kill 5 Space Marines. 4 attacks, 5 Space Marines, can't kill it. You do the sweep profile, the pop armor attempt, you most likely are still not going to kill 5 Space Marines. You're just stuck in combat. If they throw 10 Space Marines or 10 cultists, not cultists, but 10 dudes at you, you're just going to be stuck there, and most of your guns, like half of your guns have the blast keyword on it. You're not going to be able to shoot in combat. So you're just kind of stuck there, and the knights, as far as I'm aware at the moment, don't have a way to fall back and shoot and charge. So unless you get the challenge card at the perfect moment, you're not going anywhere. So don't be afraid to just run up to a knight and that has a sword on it and just tag it and be like, you can't kill 5 Space Marines. Okay, if you want to be safe, tag it with 2 5 Space Marine units. Definitely can't kill them. So this is how you're going to be beating these guys. There's a lot of armies in the game now that have -1 to hit, -1 to wound modifiers. The new Dark Angels detachment just came out. Okay, basically the entire infantry army has -1 to be wounded. If you think about a knight, okay, you're going to be hitting on 3s. If you give it -1 to hit, hitting on 4s, that means half of its guns are just gone. You're running into a Crusader Knight or a Despoiler, take one of those big guns that it has on his arms, just take it off of it because it's not going to be able to do anything. So 32 shots becomes 16 shots. And then once they have to wound you, they're still wounding you on most likely threes. If you can get -1 to wound on that as well, it's again 8 wounds. You're gonna save like half of those on a 4-up or something, and you're gonna be totally fine. So if you have hit modifiers or wound modifiers in your armies or a detachment, or maybe like a character can give it enhancement, take it. It's gonna reduce the amount of damage that these guys do to you by a big, basically a big chunk. Like Deathwing Knights, like they're gonna struggle when Canis Rex walks up, and it is wounding on 2s, goes to 3s. It misses 1 or 2 of those dice, and I know your argument's gonna be that, oh, they have a free reroll to hit and wound. It doesn't matter when everything is -1 to hit and -1 to wound. Pop smoke on your tanks. Take a tank that's slightly tougher, and just check one of these knights and be like, oh, you're gonna shoot 16 shots at me, no problem, I'll go -1 to hit. You're gonna shoot your Melta profile at me with 2d3 shots, I'm gonna pop -1 to hit, and you're gonna fail half of those hits all automatically, basically. The other thing is score more than 80 points. The Knights army is honestly not good at scoring. It can't do all the actions. It can't get behind me lines. It can't do homers in your base. It can't bring it down or assassinate when it wants to. So if you tweak your list slightly, you understand these ideas, wait for them to draw the card, or make sure your unit dies earlier in the game so they don't draw it in time, right? And they're going to score less points. If you just focus on the scoring department, like all the Eldar players, all the Drukhari players, and MSU players, your builds can just run around, score 40 points in secondaries all day, and then the Knights player is going to be like, I can't score 40, so I'm losing, and I'm not going to score primary because my opponent's going to put OC10 on an objective or just kill one big knight at some point in the game, and I'm going to not hold primary that turn. Do that twice because you're going to kill 2 knights a game at least, I hope. They're going to go down. They're going to only score about 70-ish points, 75-ish points. The only way Knights score like a lot bigger is by playing very defensively and bringing like armigers and allies into their list so they can do the missions and play 5 turns of Warhammer. Outside of that, they have to table you. If they're not tabling you, they're not going to score max primary by holding 15s for 2 turns. That's not happening. So score project and just understand that you're much better at scoring secondaries and even primary than the Knights are. Deal with them, attack their scoreboard, and win the game without killing them, right? And honestly, your list should be able to kill 2 big knights a turn if they're in the open. So if your list for some reason cannot kill 2 big knights a turn, you have other problems. Tagging them in combat, I already talked about. They have blast weapons, and the melee profiles literally can't kill 5 Space Marines. So I would go look at the data sheets, actually see what you're dealing with. On the sword profile, it's a lot more clear. And depending on if they have the sword or the fist profile, it's damage 3 or damage 2. So you can really meet the breakpoints and just get stuck in, and they can't do anything about that. Move block and splitting the battlefield is the most important one. They only move 10 inches, slightly more. They can't end within 1 inch of you, which means they're actually only move 9. Go check out the Fireside video on Fireside Podcast. And he explains it, he shows it on TTS, so do go check out that video right after this for more information on how to beat Imperial or Chaos Knights. Splitting the battlefield is the most important one in my opinion. Don't try to fight 2,000 points of an army all at the same time. The knight players have to put their knights on both sides of the table, which means there's going to be 3 on one side, 3 on the other side. If you focus on the 3 on the left side, the 3 on the right aren't going to be able to make it over and fight because of all the walls blocking their way. So just split the map in half, focus on one half, knock it out of the park, and then deal with the other half later on. And you'll basically win your games just like that very easily. They can't retaliate when half of their knights are dead. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about, this is not the end of the world, and it's going to be easily dealt with. The reason for this is because it's not the first time that we've had skew in the meta. Glitter demons still exist. They're less popular than knights. That's why, knights are making a big showing. Glitter demons have the same stats as big knights. They can teleport. They have a 4-up invul in shooting and combat. They have ways to get toughness 13, -1 to hit, reroll their saving throws of 1s. There's a lot of things going on in Greater Demons. They even heal every single time. They heal like, average of like 6 wounds on a Greater Demon when they do their Battle Shock tests. So Greater Demons is a lot harder to kill. They also are not vehicles, so they don't have, grav cannons, and anti-vehicle weapons don't work against them. There's rare cases where people have anti-demon or anti-monster recently are coming out like Space Wolves. So Greater Demons have existed. They're a lot harder to defeat, especially at the start of 10th edition, than these new Knight armies. And in fact, the Greater Demons cost like 300 points or less. So it's even cheaper. They can bring more Greater Demons, like 7 I think is the max. Bringing 7 Greater Demons is a lot more than bringing like 6 Big Knights, okay? With other stuff in the list as well. Tank spam has been around forever, so, just don't stand in the open and be shot. Hide behind walls, score your points, move block them, jail them. There's been skew lists in the meta. Just deal with it and adjust your game plan. And going back, to what I was saying at the beginning of this video, you need to stop going like 1 and 4 at your events, 2 and 3 at your events. You need to go 3 and 2 at the bare minimum if you're trying to be competitive. And if you're looking at win rates, just understand that any army that is new is going to have slightly adjusted win rates, like higher. Any army that is very simple to play is going to have slightly better win rates, because even the bad players can play them, half decent. And if it's a skew army, aka toughness skew with durability skew, it's going to win more games just because dice happen and the army plays itself, and you can get lucky, and your opponent most likely might not bring enough anti-tank, or might have mispositioned something, or lose a unit that shouldn't have died. And if a knight lives with 1 wound, it can't just keep going. So the win rate's going to be fluctuated at the beginning just because of that reason. So go and do better at your events and win more games, right? One of my clients just went 5-0 in Australia with Wotan, was on Tactical Tortoise today, and they're like, what's winning, right? The meta report that he does. So go and win your games. Don't be afraid. Bring more guns, and just divide the board in half. Focus on half of their army, and focus on the scoreboard. Score 80 points a game. If you score 80 points a game, you're probably gonna win against knights like almost all the time, unless the knight plays really, really well, and then you just need to adjust a little bit and realize that you're playing against a well-versed opponent, and it's not just you're not losing to knights, you're losing to a good opponent. You need to keep working at it. All right.